Encounter is brought to you by the Broome County Council of Churches, where we connect compassion with needs as we inspire growth with dignity. You'll find us in special places throughout the community. For those who remain hungry, we provide meals. For those who are challenged, we build wheelchair ramps. We comfort those who are ill, minister to those who are confined, and we remain an advocate for change and understanding on behalf of every element of our community. Connect and inspire. Encounter the Broome County Council of Churches.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of Encounter. I'm Jeffrey Stanton Kellam, your host, but you can call me Jeff. Our guest today is someone who has a new look, a new book, and she's a former co-host of the Encounter program, Kelly Devine, who also has a new name, and we'll get into that in a moment too. Kelly Devine was the co-host for Encounter for some time, I guess when I first got here. Mm-hmm. And the last thing we did together was a terrific interview with the granddaughter of George F. Johnson.
I remember that.
I remember it well because there was a fan running, it screwed up the audio. It was a dark room that screwed up the video. But the two of you in conversation, I mean, with a person who has a lot to reflect on historically and George F. Johnson's impact on our community, that piece is archival. I mean, that's going to be looked at for generations to come.
I believe her 94th birthday just passed.
Wow.
Yeah.
She would have been 94.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, Kelly Devine. Kelly is the author of a book which is entitled Argument Hacks, Tips on How to Communicate with Your Partner. And she's writing under the pen name of Gracie O'Devon. Now, why did you choose a pen name?
A pen name to me, I just feel my own name sometimes. I do a lot more than just author, but Gracie kind of gave me a little bit of an escape because this is a self-published book, one of many, and I really think that it kind of separates this from my own personal life.
I understand.
Yeah.
And where did the name come from?
The name, my family's last name, I'm told by a relative that may have been our name, although spelled differently.
Wow. Because
my last name is Devine, and it was changed when they came here. Gracie comes from a movie. It was, I think, Miss Congeniality.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, there's some background.
That's great. So, you know, I've never thought about writing under another name, but I understand the reason for that. I think it would be interesting for our listeners and viewers to think, what name would you write under if you were going to write a book? What other name would you like to have? I have a friend who changed her name after a difficult time in her life and took the name of, I think, her grandmother. So both her names were changed. Well, anyway, let's move back to the books. You mentioned the other books, and I just want to mention these quickly. There are two books of quotations. One is called 365 Quotes for Women, and the other is 52 Quotes. And then the other book with the wonderful definitive title, Jaded, and Dating, the definitive guide for finding a partner for a moment or a lifetime for women over 50. That says it all, I guess.
I tried.
Yeah.
I tried.
Yeah. So, but today's book is about argument hacks and how to communicate with your partner. And what led to this book?
I am a counselor. That's my profession. I have been going to school for quite some time now. I was an adult college student. I've come across quite a few people in my time, not only here as a host, but I've worked in the United Methodist Church. Before that, I worked in manufacturing for it was more than 25 years. Yeah. I've had 3 careers to date. I've met people who can't communicate. They are unhappy. They don't know how to tell the person that maybe they spend the most time with how they feel. And often people have differences that, how sad would it be that you are in a household with someone and you can't tell them how you feel, or you don't feel safe telling them how you feel, or you don't know how to say it.
Yeah.
So.
And although this is written for partners, a lot of this book can be applied to, a lot of the hacks can be applied to anyone with whom you have a fairly close relationship. It could be someone who is a fellow employee, another student, you know. So it can be more broad than the partnerships. But I'm thinking of people in a marriage or marital relationship, especially. Let's talk first about arguing, shall we?
Arguing.
Why do people argue? And it's natural, I know.
A lot of the time, there's something underlying, whether we just don't understand each other. We have a difference of opinion, and I always ask people, so when I first posted on Facebook a little bit about the book to my friends. I wanted some honest feedback about what they thought. A lot of my friends have been fantastic about reading the book, telling me what they feel. So going back to why people argue, sometimes do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? There's a difference,
Yeah.
Okay? So sometimes we have this perception of being right. I have to be right. I have to have the last word. That's basically where it comes down to. And people aren't allowed, they don't allow themselves to work it out.
And we work it out in ways that are comfortable for us, but may be very uncomfortable for the other person. When we talk about arguments too, there are lots of different levels of these arguments. Sometimes anger, frustration cause us to say and do things that we would rather or later regret. So where do we start with dealing with these hacks? And a hack, by the way,
Shortcut.
is a shortcut. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we're
yeah.
seeing that on the internet and on social media a lot. That these are hacks for, I don't know, fixing your car or whatever. But these are quick. The chapters are short, and each chapter in the book deals with a different level of this argument. So where do we begin?
Where do we begin? Well, I wanted to begin with seeing every couple, two people who are trying to work it out. I want you to see yourselves as a team. I want people to be a team. Rather than attacking each other, which gets nothing done. It may express some feelings, but you don't attack the problem. So if you think about it, as a couple, as a pair, as a team, you can double your resources.
Yeah.
Right? You can double your resources and figure out, because what I don't know, you might know.
Yeah.
And what you don't know, I might know, and we can attack the problem.
Yeah, so it's not so much like a tennis match with two individuals going at each other. It is more like a team where you're with your teammate, not an opponent.
Absolutely.
You know, when I think about some of the things that I, as a pastor, have mentioned to folks who were in, pardon the expression, combative relationships, you know, we talk about iMessages, for example. That's an old favorite.
Yeah.
To not keep saying you did this and you did that, but this is how I feel or how I'm impacted by it. But the book goes a lot deeper than that. And I'm looking at the last chapter. I did read the whole book, so I'm not just
Awesome.
I did read the first
That's what
chapter.
I was going for, Jeff.
And the last chapter. But one is don't be afraid of conflict.
Okay.
And then you're attacking the problem, not the one you love. And then conflict can be buried but grows over time. Boy, that's what we used to call the old trading stamp syndrome, where the thing that triggered it this morning was about, I don't know, my coffee was cold or something. And so you start talking about that, but then you bring up something that happened 2 weeks ago and bring up something that happened 2 years ago. You take these stamps and put them in the book until you've got a full-blown stamp book to blow the argument out of the water. That's not a good way to deal with it.
It's not productive. It's not productive at all. And all it does is build resentments over time. You may walk by your partner, the person that you're with, and you're like, something doesn't look right, but you're not going to talk about it because you got a suspicion.
Yeah.
If you really look, you have a suspicion that there's something underlying.
Right.
So yeah, it's avoidance.
And so how do you bring it up?
How do you bring it
How
up?
do you start?
How do you start? It's a simple thing where you get into a routine of saying to a person, well, how you doing today? What's going on today? And if you make this a regular thing, it doesn't become something that's so hard. I guess if you get into a routine, a lot of the time with counseling, we talk about people building routines, building healthy routines. As a couple, you build a routine of basically showing the person that you care. Obviously, you're with them for a reason.
Yeah.
You got together for a reason.
There's
and I like
history
people
there.
to reflect on that too in the beginning of the book. But a lot of it is, you start to say, hey, what happened in your life today? Or, turn around and offer maybe some concern. You look a little troubled today. Are you okay?
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I like when somebody asks me and they show a little bit of concern. I'm not always inclined to share it, but it makes me feel good when they do that. And I think if people do that enough, you get used to it and you build this routine.
Yeah, and rather than doing it as you pass each other in the island in the kitchen or whatever, sitting down together to make this an appropriate place to have a conversation.
Absolutely.
Rather than as a passing comment. And I think expressing that idea of, how's your day? I mean, that's a good opening anyway. But if you've really got something you want to bring up and it's going to be troubling, then how do you choose the words? I mean,
You set aside a time where it is, if you have a family, a time away from, say, kids or other people who live in your home, and you sit down and you start slowly and gently. That's all I could really say. I mean, it's not going to make it easier to hear, but you also come with a solution. Very solution focused. If you read the book, I'm solution focused. I like people to have come with the solution. I know this happened, but together we can work to figure it out.
It's our solution.
Our solution. It's a we, not I or not you.
Yeah, and that solution is something that it doesn't come to you like that.
Correct.
Generally, you have to think a great deal about it. And what about rehearsing for an argument too?
You can do that. You can do that. A lot of the book is trying to build skills so that you know how to have an argument, how to have a good, productive argument. Calling names. I mentioned a lot of things about keeping the volume down, calling names, depending on where you're going to have your argument, and kind of almost like a weekly, checking in, a daily checking in.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, no, that can help establish fair ground rules, and the arguments don't explode.
Correct. That's what we're trying to avoid, a little bit of verbal judo too, because if I'm yelling at you and I'm here, and you come back at me and you're here, well, where am I going to go?
Yeah.
Am I going to stay here? Yeah. I'm probably going to go here.
Well, that's stupid. I would, and that's what you want to avoid too.
Exactly.
Is naming things with negative words. And sometimes, goodness, when we get frustrated or we feel like we're backed into a corner, we say things we really regret, or maybe don't. We mean to be mean.
We do. Yeah. And I think earlier when you were talking, sometimes it is this relationship that you have with this person, open, and you try to be honest, but it allows us, because you feel like you're in that relationship, you're going to be in that relationship, and I can say anything to you and you're going to stay.
Yeah.
That may not be the best way to go about it.
Yeah. Well, especially if I think back to my own experience, early marriage. Now, I've been married a long time, so this goes back 50 years. But I remember being so angry that I left the house. And I didn't leave the marriage. I just left the house. I needed time to cool off, I guess, but it wasn't a good leaving. There are ways.
Hard.
There are ways
tough.
to get space.
Yes.
Without slamming doors.
Right. Well, another thing too I suggest is making it a period of time, like 15, 20 minutes. Don't completely leave and leave your partner wondering where you are.
Yes.
Because then you add other resentments. I was worried about you, where were you? Things like that.
Yeah.
You don't really want that. You want to continue when you're a little calmer. You want to learn to compose yourself as a partner.
Right. So the chapters, again, are brief, like 2, 3, 4 pages. But at the end of each chapter, you have some activities that couples will do together.
Yes.
And they build. They start very simply, and then as they go, I can see boundaries, barriers falling, and there was one point where you said you should take your partner's hand and speak. And that establishes a bit of physical contact, which also, I think, reminds us of the intimacy that we have as couples.
I think the reason I did that, I got thinking, when you're reading the book, you're going to read, and things they stick with people, but action kind of solidifies it a little bit.
Yeah.
So I even started with, I was just going to say, one of the first ones I think is where you basically make a list of why you're with the person. Or is there a time when I said something that really made you upset and you couldn't really tell me about it? Or are there things about me that, you know, maybe I wasn't your cup of tea that day. And then you trade lists with the person. And then I even put in there, don't start a fight, we're not there yet. So I want people to reflect on, you met this person, you were with them for a reason, and your relationship is worth working on and fight. I don't want to say fighting for, but fighting for.
The word fight, is a fight and an argument, are they synonymous?
They kind of are. They kind of are. I think we've made them negative. We've really we've made it so that when you think there's going to be an argument, like there's a disturbance in the force, you avoid. We're not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. We're under the impression that fighting is negative. It's something that is going to hurt us. When in reality, it brings you closer. Intimacy with your partner, and I don't mean physical intimacy. A lot of time people try to substitute. It's mental intimacy. It's, I can tell you anything, you still love me. You can tell me anything, I still care and love you. So,
one of the other things, glancing down at the end of the book, there's a recap and conclusion. And this one, I don't know that you used this term earlier. Maybe you did. Shut up and listen. That's not what you say to your partner. That's what you say to yourself.
You say that to yourself.
Just stop talking and listen. Listening is a difficult thing these days.
It is. Part of that is if you think, I don't know if you've ever been in a group situation. What you'll see people doing instead of listening, and I've worked really hard on this myself. That's how this came to be. I used to be trying to formulate what I was going to say to you next, instead of listening to what you were actually saying and watching your body language. So sometimes now, if I sit and I watch what's going on with the other person, it's very organic and it feels very natural for me to just answer you. It comes. You have to have faith that the words are going to come to you.
You're a trained counselor.
Yes, I am.
I'm an untrained interviewer. But I've been interviewing people since my very first interview was with the pianist George Shearing. You ever heard of George Shearing?
I have, actually.
Well, I was in college, and I was on the college radio station, and the first interview I ever had to do was George Shearing. I had my questions written down. He would respond. I would go to the next question. So I was with my questions, and I wasn't paying any attention pretty much to what he was saying. And when we talk to one another, that often is the case, that we are getting ready, we're preparing our ammunition to answer the volley that just came from the other direction, rather than listening to what was behind the volley.
Correct. Correct. That's exactly the whole premise of active listening. Active listening is magical. Because honestly, as a person who's been in a couple of relationships, I mean, I had a long-term relationship before my husband passed for 32 years. And I'll tell you, to truly be heard and have a person say, that sounds tough, you know, and how are you feeling now? Is there anything I can do for you? Because they truly heard what you said. That's magical in a relationship.
To say what you hear them feel. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Our guest today is Kelly Devine, and she is the author under the pen name Gracie O'Devon, of a book which is called Argument Hacks, and it is how to communicate with your partner. Is there more to that? Because it's abbreviated here on my tablet, but.
Well, it's tips on how to communicate with your partner effectively during a fight.
There you go. Okay, I knew there was more to it than that. And I'm going on to, I like this, stay out of the weeds or you'll be stuck in the mud. Choosing one address at a time. I guess we covered that with the trading stamp thing. How to read body language. Now that's, I have to admit, I'm really comfortable doing this. If I'm sitting at a meeting and I know what that says is, I don't really give a darn about,
Yeah, or can it be over?
Yeah, okay, I should just get this over with. I would never do that here on TV.
Right,
I'm trying to be
right.
open. But our body language says a lot.
It does.
So, and you mentioned several different things to look for as we communicate with one another.
Oh yeah, there are. I mean, when you're having a discussion, if you are talking to me and you're trying to get through and explain to me how you feel, and I'm over here doing this.
Oh
and,
yeah.
And I'm not paying any attention, and I'm not giving you. Yeah, exactly.
Excuse
the phone.
Me a minute. I just want to check this and make sure
Exactly.
I never turned it off.
So here's the thing: is you really want to give the person your undivided attention, and if you do this, as I said, create a routine and a safe space to talk to your partner and or the person you're with. Make it so it's an inviting. They have all of your attention.
Yeah.
What's it cost you?
Yeah.
Right?
So eye contact is important.
Very.
I realize that
Very.
when I'm doing the TV interviews, I am looking at people in the eye. But ordinarily, when I have conversations with people, I don't make eye contact. And I don't know whether I need counseling. I don't know what this says about me.
I'm sure you're fine, Jeff.
But yeah, thank you. Thank you, counselor. So eye contact is important and paying attention.
Yeah.
I read also in your biography that I found on the website. I went to Amazon looking for your books, and there's your biography, that you journal.
I do, constantly.
Has journaling fed into the writing of the book?
In some ways, it helps me to realize that, I notice things about myself along the way, and it keeps me more self-aware. I think that's a big part, too, is in talking to your partner, you get lost. You get lost in the issue, and you forget to think of why we don't identify our bias on a certain subject, and that's really important.
Yeah.
So journaling has helped me as a counselor, as a person, as a mother of an adult son. My son's in his mid-20s, and a lot of the time I reflect on how I was when I was in my mid-20s, and now that I'm not.
Yeah, and that goes back to something you mentioned earlier about seeing things through the other person's eyes.
Absolutely.
Empathy. And
Empathy's huge.
Yeah,
huge.
Yeah. The idea of journaling for us as we go through the day, it's different from a diary. We're not just listing the things we did today.
Right.
But journaling, I think, is more thoughtful because we're trying to process what we did today, or the relationships that we encountered, or the conversations we had, or the growth that we felt. And I think that translates, too, into this idea of arguing, not fighting, but arguing with one another. When I try to process myself after the argument is over, isn't that kind of important for us to do that independently of the other person?
Sometimes, yeah. I think that you should, as a couple, be able to say anything to each other. I mean, I found my relationship that was fairly long. We had one child. We would never talk around our child about adult things. But I think I could have said anything to him, and he could say anything to me. And we went through a lot of things, which, some people go, oh, that sounds terrible. But I look at it now, and through journaling over these years, it's been quite a long time being single and all that. Quite a long time.
Yeah. The book is very accessible, and it's also inexpensive.
Okay.
It's not a $24.95 book that you're gonna have to take out a loan to buy. So how is it available? I mentioned Amazon.
Well, if you go to Amazon, you can find it. Just search Gracie O'Devon, and O'Devon has an apostrophe in there. If you follow me on Amazon, every time I come out with a book, it'll pop you an email and say, hey, guess what's new from Gracie?
Sure.
I also have an Etsy store which if you're into like PDFs, you can go and get it for a really reduced cost. You just download the PDF, which is kind of nice for some people.
Sure.
You know, maybe they don't really want to do the whole Amazon thing, where other people like a book in their hand that they can highlight things and work from.
Right.
However, I try to make it as available as possible. I'm working towards another couple venues, which I have a website. If you search Gracie O'Devon, you can find me.
Great. Gracie.
Yep.
O'Devon.
Yes.
The book, I got it on my e-reader here because
Yeah.
I wanted it quickly.
Kindle is probably one of the best things
But
I've seen.
I would rather have a book in hand so that I could highlight, and that's one of the difficulties with. I don't know how to do that on my tablet. You know,
Not yet.
I'm an old guy, but I know there's a way to do it. Now the other books, very quickly. We have a couple of minutes left. The quotation books. These are pretty much like devotionals.
Yeah, what I did was I chose, I'll give you an example, 365 quotes for women, which is a year of reflection, for every single day of the year, including if there's a leap year. So you can use it every day. Some of the people that have bought it that I know personally, they read it every day, and it's quotes for women by women.
Yeah.
So I chose that on purpose. I left space on each page so that there are not lines, but I left space so that people could make notes.
Oh, good.
They could, dog ear they can hold it in their hand. They like that.
Right.
I'm gonna do a series of these very same books because I find people really like that, and
Yeah.
it gives them something to get into. Again, I'm big with routine. Get into the routine of doing this every day. Just a little thought, something to chew on all day.
Yeah. And then the 52 quotes.
That's a
you
little
know,
different.
Well, it's a little bit different, but to take one a week and then sit with it every day
Yes.
and see what it says differently on Wednesday than it said perhaps
Mm-hmm.
on Monday.
It would maybe an example. I think one of the words is like persistence.
Yeah.
Or there's another one, courage. And there's a quote associated with that word, and you just think that like a little mantra all week. It gives you some focus, and where do you see that in your life? And
Right.
and you being a former pastor, right?
Yeah.
You know that sometimes you need to keep. It looks different on Monday than it did on,
Oh, yeah.
Sunday.
Yep.
So-
Yeah, that's, as I would open up the lectionary to see what I was going to preach on Sunday, I would take a walk with my wife down a country road in Vermont where we lived at the time, and I'd say, this is what I'm going to do with this passage. And then a couple of days later, I'm thinking, I'm going a different direction.
It's just a fork.
Yeah, right. So the 52 quotes is still a helpful thing to deal with. And the other book, quickly, is Jaded and Dating, the definitive guide for finding a partner for a moment or a lifetime for women over 50.
So
This sounds like it comes out of personal experience.
it does. So here is,
We have about 30 seconds here.
short version.
Okay.
When you have nothing to do and you're on break from school, and in light of isolation, social media, and pandemic, that's what you do. You write a book to keep people safe.
Bingo.
Yep.
So Kelly Devine has been our guest. She writes under Gracie O'Devon, and Argument Hacks is the name of the book we've been talking about today. I'm Jeff Kellam. Thank you for being with us on the Encounter program produced by the Broome County Council of Churches. We'll see you again next week.